Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller, and I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Have you ever caught yourself saying, well, we've always done it this way? It's one of the most common phrases in workplaces, organizations, and even families, and sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's the very thing holding us back. I spent today making hay and ended up getting a reminder from a hay field that applies just to just about every part of life. So usually when we bale our hay, we hook up the tractor to the baler. We put the wagon behind the baler. It attaches right to it. And as the bales come out of the baler, they go up a ramp and people on the wagon grab them and stack them and off they go. And they never actually have to touch the ground. And when you only have a couple helpers and when you only have a few people to stand on the wagon and grab them, that works well. But the trade-off is that I go slower than I need to because obviously I don't want to knock the people off the hay wagon. It's hard enough to stand still and hold, not lose your balance and not fall off without having anything to hold on to. But I also don't want to, make it too difficult for them to try to keep up with me and spit the bales out the back of the hay baler faster than they can actually grab them and stack them on the wagon. So I go a bit slower. And so that means the overall time that it takes is a little bit longer. Now, today, we made a bit of a change. A friend of mine said, hey, listen, I've got this flat deck trailer. It's low to the ground. We can put a bunch of hay bales on it. Why don't you just bail the bales onto the ground, go super quick, and we'll pick them up behind you. I had a whole bunch of helpers coming. I'm very thankful for them that they always show up to help when they do. And so that's what we did. So I started out ahead of them. I told the folks to meet me at a certain time, and I went out and a couple hours before that hooked up the baler and just got to work. And I baled one entire field and was on the way to the second before anybody else even was scheduled to show up to help. So by the time I was done with the first field, they got there shortly after and started to pick them up while I baled the second field. I was done with the tractor, jumped off and shut it off, and they came to the second field. We picked them up, stacked them on the trailer, and in a few pickup trucks went back and put them away in the barn. And it worked really, really well. We were done earlier than normal, and it worked great. And when I was a kid, years and years ago, that's what we used to do. Years ago, when I was little, we didn't bale our own hay. Our neighbor did it for us. And so he used to just bale them onto the ground. And then my dad and his brothers and my grandfather and my uncle, they would all show up and just fill up pickup trucks with hay bales, and we'd bring them up and put them in the barn. So kind of full circle. But to my surprise today, it worked really well. And in fact, some ways it worked even better than what we'd been doing. And I shouldn't say that I'm super surprised because I knew it would be effective and I knew it would be efficient because we had done it that way before. But I got thinking about it and took the lesson away that I wonder so often how many things and how many people get tied up in the we've always done it this way mentality because, it got me thinking a lot of times we assume, and I mean the greater we as people, we assume that the current way is automatically the best way. We think, well, we've evolved over time. We've done this. We did it a different way before, and now we do it differently because it works better, and we've learned, and we've evolved. And that might be true. That might be the case, and yes, things get better, and we change and adapt with time. But sometimes doing things a different way, and maybe even a way we once did them or did them before, doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong or any worse than the way you had been doing it. And again, this isn't about saying the old way is wrong, and it's also not about saying the current way that you are doing it, that you're going to deviate from a little bit, is wrong. It's about remembering that good ideas don't expire just because they're old, and new ideas shouldn't be dismissed just because they're different. So when you take that into consideration, we can talk about so many things, I think, that we all experience, that we are super attached to when it comes to processes. We all have a way we want to do things, right? We all have a way we want to cook, a way we want to clean, a way we want to wash our car, a certain route we drive to work. The process at work of doing a certain task, we do them the same way. We like the way we've done them. We've learned and we've evolved. And if somebody else comes in and says, oh, why don't you do it this way? We're like, no, hey, back off. We're not doing it that way, mister, or ma'am. Like, we're not, no, thank you. I do it this way. It's the way we've always done it, and it works well, and we're not going to change. And I think we get really attached to the processes, and we forget sometimes what the overall end goal is. And we protect routines more than we protect results. And sometimes we defend comfort instead of improvement, right? We say, well, we're comfortable doing it this way. We know it works well. We don't want it. The change is hard, right? We pull our little helmet over our head, bury our head in the sand and say, change is hard. We don't, it's comfortable to do it this way because we know what to expect and we know what to do. But that doesn't mean that you can't look for ways to improve. And if you find ways to improve and they're different than what you're currently doing, that doesn't make what you're currently doing bad or wrong. It just means you are willing to try something else, and it might work out really, really well. And so ask yourself 3 questions. Am I doing this because it's the best way, or because it's the familiar way? Am I doing this just because it's what I remember and what I know, or what my parents told me to do or showed me to do, what my mom did, my dad did, my grandparents, whatever it is? I think we find a lot of comfort in the routine and a lot of comfort in the processes we know and understand, and comfort is powerful. Routine feels really, really safe, but familiarity isn't always efficiency. Just because it's familiar to us doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way or the quickest and most efficient way to do it. And the second question is, have I stopped looking for better solutions? Growth in any stage, in any form, whether it's personal growth, business growth in your job or your career, growth in your relationship or your friendship or your relationship with your kids, whatever it is, growth requires curiosity. You have to ask questions. You have to be curious. You have to be willing to say, hey, what if we did it this way? What things could I change? Does everybody do it this way? I think that's a really cool question too. You can go do something with a different group of people who maybe you haven't met before or are unfamiliar, and it's the same task you've done, and they do things completely differently. As a quick aside to this, there's this really funny story a friend of mine in the fire department has always told me years ago when I was in the fire department I grew up in, that I was a kid in before I transitioned. There was this guy who he went to this small town in Vermont, and he visited their firehouse. And when they got back from a call, he walked into the firehouse, and all the trucks were pulled into the firehouse. And so he kind of looked at him, and he was like, "Oh, they're pulled in. Well, that's interesting." And now, when the alarm went off, when they had a call, they would get in the trucks, they would open the doors, they would carefully back them out of the firehouse, find a spot to turn around, turn the truck around, and then head off to the emergency. And he said to them, he's like, "Boy, those are some nice trucks." He goes, "You guys ever think of backing them in?" And he said it was like this ripple effect of like the mind blown, hand on the temple, like mind blown look of everybody there, because they had never thought to do it that way. Now, it doesn't make them unintelligent or wrong. Did the trucks get out when the tones went off for a call? Absolutely it did. But they had never thought, hey, you know what, if we back them in when we have a spare minute, when there's not an emergency, pulling them out when there is an emergency is a lot quicker and a lot easier. When they discovered this idea, it was literally like super eye-opening for them. So sometimes we just get used to the way we're doing things. And when someone else comes along that also does something very similar or the same, but has a different way of doing that similar task, we're like, oh my God, like this is so eye-opening. I didn't ever think to do that. And again, it doesn't make you wrong or unintelligent. It just means you didn't think about it to do it that way before. And, with this, have I stopped looking for better solutions? That second question, and, I said growth requires curiosity. When we stop asking what if, I think that's when we stop improving. Because if we just don't ever ask ourselves, what if we could do this better? What if we did this? How would this be better? Are we happy doing it this way, or are we comfortable doing it this way? Is this the best way it works? If you stop wondering what if or how we could improve, I think that's when improvement just stops altogether. And the third question to kind of ask yourself is, am I adaptable? Leadership is a really big, great tool if you're in a position to learn, to manage people, or you're working in a leadership role, you will know and come to learn that leadership is a great way to learn that you have to be adaptable. Great leaders are not rigid by any means. Yes, they are firm. Yes, they are fair. Yes, they sometimes can be stern and all those things, but they are by no means rigid and unwilling to pivot. Right? That Tanya Tucker song says, there is a tree in the backyard forever and never has been broken by the wind because it's strong enough to bend. That's the whole idea. The reason trees move and bend and sway is because otherwise they would just break. And we as people have to remember we have to do the same things. And they may be rooted in their beliefs and they may be rooted in their ideals, but they are also rooted in principles. That's true, but flexible in their methods. They might say, listen, these are my principles, these are my beliefs, this is what I stand firmly rooted in. That's fine. And some of the great leaders, you have to have good ideals and good morals and principles to be a good leader, because you have to know what you stand for and what you're helping other people stand for. But you have to be flexible in your methods. Not every single person you work with is going to respond to leadership or to direction or to, if you're in something like the military, to orders or to, things that you tell them to do the same way. You have to have different methods to work with people, to learn alongside people, and to teach alongside people the way they learn best, because the goal stays the same. The goal stays the same, whether you're a leader or whether you're working or this is your job or your career or your home life. If you have a goal, here's the thing, right? We want to do the goal. Here's the pin on the wall, pin on the bulletin board. This is what we're trying to achieve. That's awesome. That can stay the same. But the path to get there can absolutely change. You can take a different road to get to the same place. You can take 15 different roads to get to the way where I work in my office. You can go 9 different ways. None of them are the same. None of them are easy. They're all different, but they all bring you to the same place, right? Think of some place you love to go. You go to the same way every time? Maybe you do. Maybe sometimes you go a different way because you're just accustomed to going a different way. Maybe you go a different way every single time just to change it up. But whatever the case may be, the path can change even if your goal stays the same. And the personal development connection of this comes in when we transition this and relate it to everyday life. People get stuck saying, phrases become common. We say things like, I've always handled stress this way. I've always worked these hours. I've always been this kind of person. I've always reacted like this. And it's hard not to do those things because sometimes they are so deeply ingrained with us, they become part of not only our routine, but they become part of our personality. We do certain things a certain way, and we are known for them. The people around us, our friends, our family, the people we interact with, they know certain things about us. Oh, this happened, so-and-so is always going to react this way, or they're always going to say this, or when they hear a loud car go by, this is going to be their response, or when they see, graffiti on the wall, or when they see a crazy dinner menu with foods they can't pronounce, oh, this is how they're going to react. Whatever the case may be, all those things can become so much a part of us that sometimes it's really difficult to break out of those things. But it's important to challenge that thinking because your habits get you where you are, but they aren't necessarily the habits that will take you where you want to go. We can stay stuck in the same old habits and the same old routine and the same old track going round and round and round and just making loops and circles and never actually get anywhere. And the real growth and the real movement comes when you realize that sometimes, and not always, but sometimes doing things differently isn't a step backwards. And sometimes it's not even a learning curve where it makes it so you have to do things more slowly. Sometimes it works out really well to your benefit. And I think that might be one of the things we worry about, is that we think that, if we're going to try something different, it's going to be slower because we have to learn how to do it. Anything new comes with a learning curve and a slow kind of uptake and introduction to it and a slow learning process. Sometimes that's not the case. If you know what the task is, if you know what the goal is, if you know what you have to do and you're going to set out to do it, changing things along the way won't slow you down in every situation. Prime example with my hay story today, like everybody knows the goal. We bale the hay, we pick up the hay, we bring it to the farm, we put it in the barn and stack it up, and then we eat and drink and be merry and hang out. The process is super simple and straightforward. I shouldn't say it's simple. The process is super straightforward. But there's more than one way of doing it. And so we don't have to learn how to make hay again. I don't have to learn how to run the equipment. I don't have to learn when to cut it, how to rake it, when it's dry, when it's not dry, and all that kind of stuff. All that knowledge has stayed with me. But the part of the process of picking it up and putting it away is one small part in the bigger picture. Doing that differently is perfectly okay. And it doesn't mean that like I said, it doesn't mean you're straying from something that works or straying from something that you want to stay a part of. We can go back to the old way. I guarantee sometime in the future there's going to be a field where I hook the hay wagon up and somebody jumps on the hay wagon and we bale it that way because we're short on help, or we've got plenty of time, or I only have 1 or 2 people around to help and there's not a whole bunch of us, or whatever the case may be. I can go back to that old way, and it does not diminish doing it the other way, and it also doesn't diminish all the times we did it the prior way before that. And this, in my mind, now that I'm talking about this, I keep getting this leadership connection that's kind of poking at my brain, because organizations like, you guys know that I'm a member of the fire department and have been for a long time. But the fire department, businesses, families, churches, volunteer organizations, whatever group you're a part of, whatever group you want to relate this to. And I think, so just as another quick aside, in the fire department, the we've always done it this way mentality is so tough to break sometimes. But it's one of those things that so many departments try to break out of, because just because we've always done it this way doesn't make it right. We make the joke that there was a time when we didn't wear air packs. You know, when my dad first joined the fire service 40-something years ago, there was one air pack on the truck. It was in a compartment in a box in the back compartment of the truck. And like the last person to get to the fire was the one who usually had to get it and put it on, because they're like, hey, go get the air pack so we can say we used it. You know, think of now, like wearing air packs now, they have Bluetooth capabilities and wireless displays and wireless mics and voice amplifiers, and you can literally keep track of them in the building if you're the incident commander. We have learned that not only are they a key to life safety, but we can do really great things with them to help the fire ground overall. Lots of organizations can do this as well, as long as you learn that it's okay to break out of that we've always done it this way mentality. And, you know, that one sentence can become such a roadblock. The we've always done it this way can become such a huge hurdle, or just this big Jersey barrier right in the way of progress. And instead of that sentence, you can ask things like, you know, is this still the best way? Somewhere along the lines in the fire service, they said, hey, the best way is not just charging in with no air pack. The best way to do it is to actually protect the firefighters. You know, we don't want them to die and get cancer and all that kind of stuff. So we need to make them wear air packs. We need to give them better gear that will protect them from heat and smoke. And now fast forward, so when I first joined the fire service back almost 30 years ago now, you know, air packs were a thing. And we wore them, but so much has also changed in my tenure in the fire service. Now the cancer initiatives and the different carcinogen initiatives, all the testing that we go for and people can volunteer and sign up to do based on the hazards of the profession or of the, you know, the idea of being in the fire service and the things you're exposed to. PTSD, stuff like that, not only in the fire service, in the military, critical incident stress debriefing in hospitals. When you look at situations like that, over the years, people have said, hey, what can we improve? What have we learned? What if there's an even better option? And that's where some of these really big, beautiful things were born from, and where they came from is those questions. And instead of saying we've always done it this way, people ask the bigger questions of, is this still the best way, and those types of things. And it's brought us some really, really great things. And again, some things we can go back and do the other way. I don't think anybody wants to go back to never wearing air packs and you know, saying we'll just suck in all the smoke and die of cancer at a young age. Like, obviously, that's not ideal for anybody involved. But if it's something you say, hey, you know what, this worked well for 10 years, we switched it up, we're going to do it differently, it's okay to do it differently for another 2 or 3 years or another 6 months or another 5 hay fields and then go back to the other way, whatever it is. It doesn't mean you're losing ground, and it doesn't mean you made a bad decision or it was an unintelligent decision. It just means you're balancing it, and that's what it's all about, right? The world of balance is I'm not suggesting that we throw out everything we've been doing. There's usually a reason we've done something a certain way for years. Experience definitely matters. Tradition definitely matters. Proven systems definitely matter. But we also shouldn't become so attached to a method that we ignore a better outcome. We shouldn't be so attached to this is how I have to do it, this is the way it's always been done mentality, that we lose sight of the overall goal and how much better we might be able to make it. If you have a goal in mind and you have a task you want to set out to do, and you can say, hey, you know what, this would be really great if this went quicker, if this was a little bit less labor intensive, if we could do this in less steps, if we could do this with less paper, all those things, whatever the case may be, all those things are born from the necessity of let's find a better way to do this for the sake of making it better, easier, quicker, faster, less wasteful, and on and on and on. The list can continue, you know, to an endless amount of things. And when we look at it that way, when we look at that through that scope, we can understand this isn't about changing just to change and say, hey, we've done it this way for a long time, we should probably change. It's about looking at what the outcome is and what we want to change for ourselves. And when it comes to personal development and self-betterment, this can be really helpful too. If you've been working on a goal and you've been working towards a goal, whether it's working out or losing weight or finishing a project, writing a book, starting a business, going to church more, going to leadership groups, going to your kids' soccer games, spending more time with your kids, cooking more, trying new recipes, on and on and on. The list can continue forever. if you look at what you want to get out of the situation, you will know what you have to put into the situation to get that outcome. And then when you examine how it has gone in the past, and when you examine the ways you've done it before, then you can figure out if there are things you want to change and improve. Now, some things are better left alone. I know for a fact that somewhere there is an Italian grandmother who's like 96 years old who has been making homemade pasta the same way for the past 75 years. And if you change it now, it's going to ruin everything because she has perfected her craft and it tastes amazing. She doesn't need to change anything. She has found what works. So this isn't an every situation needs to change and needs to find ways to improve. If there are things in your life that you're doing that are working well, awesome. Keep doing them and let them work well. If there are things in your life you want to improve and change and find new ways to do them to make them better or more efficient, awesome. Try that as well. And when you look at all those things, remember, again, the goal isn't change for the sake of change. The goal is change for the sake of improvement. And as we close, I want to ask you to do this. Pay attention to the places where you automatically say, that's just how we do it. Then ask yourself that one more question of, is it still the best way? And maybe the answer is yes. Like I said, the grandmother, the 95-year-old Italian grandmother who's been making homemade pasta the same way, awesome. Don't change it. If you have that tried and true method, you don't have to change it. If the answer is yes, this is still the best way, great. Keep doing it. But maybe the answer is no. And if there's a better way for doing it, and if there's a better way waiting for you, just remember to be willing enough to try something different and be willing enough to give yourself the space and the permission to do something you might be uncomfortable doing because you're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to work out. It's okay if it's unknown. And again, it can be part of the overall bigger process. You don't have to change the entire wheel, right? This is not reinventing the wheel. I didn't change the way I make hay, the way I cut it, ted it, rake it, let it dry. I didn't change any of that. All I changed is the way we pick it up during the baling process, the very last step. So those things in your life, you don't have to change the entire overall process. Maybe you just change one or two little things along the way to make it more efficient and work a little bit better. And being adaptable doesn't mean abandoning your values. Please remember that too. It simply means being humble enough to admit that sometimes a different path can lead to an even better destination. You can get to someplace great. You can get to someplace even better maybe if you try just a little bit different. If you're walking along a path and you're like, oh, I love this spot on the beach. This looks really great. This stretch of sand looks nice. This beach is great. If you stop there, cool. And maybe it's a beautiful beach. But there is a chance that if you walk another 50 feet, another 100 yards, another quarter mile, whatever the distance might be, that you find an even better spot and an even better location with better water and better waves and better sand and less people and all that kind of stuff. So just remember to be willing to go a little bit further and be willing to go a little bit outside your normal, quote-unquote, comfort zone of we've always done it this way, to explore new things and new ways to do things if that's something you want to do. And again, if it doesn't work out, that's okay. If it doesn't work out, you can go right back to the other way you were doing it. No harm, no foul. And guys, again, one more thing before I go. Please, please, please remember, adaptability is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of confidence. Changing what you're doing is not a place where you should worry that somebody's going to say, oh, well, you couldn't make up your mind, huh? Got to try something different now because you thought you knew everything and it didn't work? Just full stop. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of confidence in your ability to learn to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Insecure people cling to methods because changing feels like admitting they were wrong. And I think sometimes other insecure people, they point fingers at the people around them and they try to make themselves feel better by saying, oh, yeah, see, they tried something and that didn't work. But listen, learning to adapt and learning to try something new and being willing to do that and give yourself the permission and the space and having the courage to do that speaks volumes about you. So don't be afraid to try. Go ahead and go get right after it. You might be surprised at how well it turns out. My friends, no matter where you are in the world, I tell you this every time, but I mean it so much. I appreciate you lending me your time and your ears and lending me your brain for a little while I talk about what's on my mind and on my heart lately. I thank you so much for the likes and the follows and the comments and the messages and reaching out on social media. If you'd like to, please don't forget to follow me. I am on Instagram and TikTok at Todd W. Hiller. No numbers, no underscores, no punctuation. Come find me. It's a lot of fun over there. I'd love to have you as a follower. Be well, my friends. Take care. I hope you've enjoyed the message. And wherever you are, have a great rest of your day, night, morning, evening, or anything in between.
Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.